It's episode 14 of Chit Chat, and boy, do we have a debate on our hands. What is a Euro anyway? And how is it different than an Ameristyle game? Well, here at Chit Chat, we don't care where a game comes from, as long as it's good. Welcome to episode 14 of Chit Chat. This is going to be a heated debate, I think. We are going to talk tonight about Euro games and Amera games, or Ameritrash as it's been called. The differences between how do you define a Euro, how do you define Ameritrash. Some of us disagree with each other. I'm sure some of us disagree with what other people think out there. As always, we have Ryan and we have Gary, we have myself and Jeremy here on the end. So let's dive right into it.
I think it's also important to say that we're going to also talk about the hybrids that they've created over the past year. Because typically, when you look at the past and you talk about like Ameritrash games and Euro games, Ameritrash in general, let's start there because they have a very derogatory name around them, right?
Sure.
Some people don't know how the name was created. I don't know how the name was created, but when you say trash in anything, it sounds as it's a bad term. When you talk about Ameritrash, it's an accepted term in board game terminology.
Sure.
Like, it's used
People
all over the place.
generally know what the idea is.
Now people call it Ameristyle games, or
Amerigame.
they've even gone over to things calling it like thematic games, because that's typically what Ameritrash game stands for. It's a game that's highly thematic. It's a game that uses like characters or variable player powers at the very start of the game. It's typically a game that has a moderate to a high level of luck in it, because you're rolling dice and having some kind of non-predetermined outcome. But one of the most important things is that typically in Ameritrash games, when you look at Ameritrash games through the years, they were highly conflictive games. It's player versus player, and the interaction in the game is two players fighting each other, right? Whereas when you look at a Euro-style game, those are typically games that are non-interactive, and if there is interaction between them, it's typically bumping a player or blocking a player. So that's basically one of the main distinguishing factors between Euro-style games and Ameritrash games.
So it's interesting you say that, because I've not really thought about this, but I've always considered area control as a mechanism that's more associated with Euros than Ameritrash. Would you say?
It depends on how the area control is handled
That's what I was
within the
gonna
game. If it's pure conflict and you are removing pieces from the board, that, in my consideration, would probably gear more towards Ameritrash style games. If it's not pure conflict where you're not removing those pieces from the board, I would probably consider it more of a Euro style game. Again, there's a lot of other factors that factor into how you would categorize that game.
Yeah, for sure. I think in more recent years, I think you see a lot of blurring of these lines for sure. There's certainly plenty of Euros out there that have more and more theme. And there's certainly more and more games here that originate in America that are closer or along the lines of Euros, and that's where the term hybrid comes into play.
Yeah, I want to go through a couple more definitions so we just have a ground level by which to talk about. So some other things I wrote down for Euro is that typically they're a competition over victory points or resources. That's typical in almost all of them, whereas a Ameritrash game is you have a victor, right? You have one victory player, that's it. Also, combat's typically very rare in a Euro-style game, right? Players almost never eliminated from a Euro game. That's something you see quite a bit of in Ameritrash games. You complete player elimination out of the game.
Right.
In the past, theme has been very irrelevant to Euro-style games. That's changing, obviously, now, but you could typically replace farming with space exploration, or anything could go in. It's the mechanisms by which the game is developed that really make it more of a Euro game than a Ameritrash game. So that's the base ground level for which the names are defined, typically. When you go to BGG or you ask people, those are how they're defined. Now, as we said, these lines are blurring across the board. We're seeing games that fall within both categories, and I feel this way, that's for the better. Because a lot of these games that, I'm a Euro fan, I've always been a Euro fan, but seeing theme brought into games and seeing a little bit of player interaction brought into these Euro-style games is great for me.
Well, and vice versa. Seeing some of the resource management, I think one of the great crossover games that I'm actually not the biggest fan of, but that has taken off like crazy is Scythe. And Scythe brought a lot of Euro elements into what kind of feels like a 4X game. Yet it doesn't play anything like Twilight Imperium. I mean, it plays very much like a Euro. And while it wasn't my cup of tea in general, I really like what Scythe has done for those hybrid type games, right? And I want to see a trend of that. I want to see more of these American style games bringing in Euro aspects.
When I've thought about, how do I define or Ameritrash or Euro games? Is like, because I've always thought about Euro games when I first got into it. It's a lot about resource management, kind of like what you talked about. You see a lot of these more American style games. There's a lot of risk management.
Yeah.
Because there is that competition, there is kind of that combat aspect in there. Because what I've read in the past, which would be interesting to go back further to the history, is like when the Euro games really were German games, and they came out right after World War II, but they didn't want games that had a lot of combat and all that sort of stuff.
For obvious reasons.
That was too fresh, too soon after the war and everything. So they got more abstract. About farming and just kind of building up things, but as time has gone on, especially like in our culture and stuff, we like the competition, we like the combat, and that's come now that you're seeing just a lot of that crossover where themes just aren't slapped on. There's a heavier theme. There's a better theme there, and you're getting that fun hybrid aspect.
And that, to me, at least, once I started really getting into enthusiast games, that's what really I felt defined it for me. Is I associated with games where you're moving little guys around a little map, not a big macro level, but like through corridors, rolling dice and killing one another.
Right.
Is a Ameritrash or dice chucker. Honestly, in my opinion, when I think of the term dice chucker, I use that at least synonymously with Ameritrash.
I think a lot of Ameristyle games are dice chuckers.
Yeah.
I think one thing I've always used to differentiate, or at least that has been a pivotal point of Ameristyle games, is they have highs and lows, whereas Eurostyles are generally pretty even. Where in a Eurostyle you can kind of mitigate everything, you can kind of plan ahead, you know what's coming. When something bites you, it's because you didn't plan for it. Whereas Ameristyle games, you go from these you get those crazy dice rolls, or like you draw the exact right card at the exact right time to save yourself from elimination. And that's kind of a cool aspect, I think, of those American style games. It's more cinematic, and that you have those cheer moments. You don't get those as much.
Yeah, when you're talking about those games, just something I wanted to bring up. Someone had mentioned ARKHAM. Who had mentioned ARKHAM?
We talked about it earlier.
You had mentioned ARKHAM. That's definitely an Amera style game, ARKHAM Horror. But also, I wrote down StarCraft, the board game, Axis and Allies, Fortress America, Descent, and then one of the Grail games, Star Wars, The Queen's Gambit. These are all typically what I would consider heavy Ameritrash games. But as you said, these lines are blurring. Like Gloomhaven is a perfect example. Typically, when you play Dungeon Crawlers, it's a dice chucker, right? It's a competitive game. It's a one versus many or a cooperative group of players playing it. They've blurred the lines because they've added card play, which is typically something that's heavily done in a Euro-style game, like a tableau management style game or a resource management game, by using your hands as both your abilities and as your life. And we're seeing that blurred across the board. Also with Blood Rage, you had mentioned area control style games. And there's no dice in Blood Rage. It's all card drafting and then using your cards to do the area control within the game. Plus, when you look at Blood Rage as a hybrid between the two, you have something with a very heavy theme, something where you have a lot of information by the drafting. You know the cards that you've given to other players, and you know the cards when you draft those cards.
Yeah, I see. You mentioned a few games there, and it got me thinking. We use the term hybrid, but I feel like really, at the end of the day, at least in my opinion, hybrids really are the direction where all of them are going. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that I feel that both types of games have their own merits, and neither are necessarily good or bad, whereas some really, really dry and traditional Euros might lack those exciting moments. The Ameristyle games have just too much chaos and too much randomness to be satisfying from a thought-provoking standpoint. You can't sit there and think, okay, what am I going to do here and strategize, because it may just all come down to rolling the dice. So we see these hybrids. In my opinion, I'd rather get away from the labels of what we've traditionally looked at these things as, and just kind of embrace good games. Mm-hmm. Because I think would we all agree that a game that, for instance, like you said, Blood Rage or Gloomhaven, it gets away from some of those dice chucking elements, brings in a little bit more of a Euro flavor with mechanics, but the mechanics just are probably better.
More refined, and definitely more towards the Euro style of gameplay.
I guess I'd probably steer that conversation away from those labels and just get a sense for what games they've played and what they like, and say, oh,
Well, that's
then
true.
you
In terms
like
of
this, this,
mechanics.
and
That's
this.
true for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, tell me the mechanics. Because I think labels also get into a situation where there was a time where I was not a Euro gamer. And if someone said, do you want to play a Euro? Because I hadn't experienced them, I would say no. Because in my head, it meant this, and it didn't sound appealing. That's changed now for me. So when someone says Euro, it's a little bit more interesting. But labels, in my opinion, while they can be helpful, I think with a little bit more conversation, you can avoid a lot of confusion where someone, especially when terms like Ameritrash are one of the terms that's thrown around. It's such a derogatory
Absolutely.
sounding term.
Yeah.
Like I like the fact that that's turned into Ameristyle, or like you said before we started filming,
Amerigame.
or even thematic.
Yeah. thematic.
I think it's good to get away from the negative side of these things in sort of a versus sort of thing.
But on the
like where
flip
people
side-
say I hate Euros or I hate
Sure.
Ameritrash.
I think those
Yeah.
labels are. I feel like they are important because it informs the experience you're going to have. So when I ask you, like, do you prefer games that are like heavy on luck, or do you prefer games that are heavy on strategy? You know, I can say if we have a baseline and we both understand these definitions, and I can say to you, you feel like something more Ameristyle today, or do you want to do something more Euro? You know, you have an idea, and you say maybe something in between, right?
Yeah, I
but that
guess-
only works when everybody understands those definitions.
Well, it understands and embraces. I mean, that's the thing. It's just with any label, it can mean so many different
I don't
things.
see any different than saying, do you want to watch a sci-fi movie or do you want to watch a Western movie? Or do you want to read a...
Except, for instance, Alicia hates Western movies. If I say you want to watch a Western movie, no way. But when I've put a movie in that happened to be a Western, there's a really good movie, and it's good on its own rights, and not because it's a Western. It's not old-fashioned cowboy type Western. It just happened to be set in a setting with cowboys. She enjoyed it, but she wouldn't. Or war movies, you know. Like a lot of people like Saving Private Ryan, but they don't like war movies. You know, it's. As I
Well,
mean,
I
I don't
think
want
you
to
know, kind of get back
sidetracked
to
on it,
well,
but-
do you want to watch a Western or a sci-fi or a comedy? To me, I would almost make that analogy of, well, now we're back to what kind of mechanic do you like? Do you like card drafting? Do you like to play with cards? Do you like to play with dice? Do you like to do more deduction type stuff? I know sometimes when I'm talking to people who are new to board games, they don't know what Euro means. They don't know what Ameristyle means. But if I start asking, you know, hey, do you like to use cards and do you like to do puzzles? Maybe it's Baron Park, you know, something like that. I don't know. I guess because there is so much crossover now, we're starting to get away. I mean, yeah, there's always going to be your classic Euros might come out every year. I don't even know what a classic Ameristyle is anymore. They're now so, you know, they've gotten so
I think
much better
most
with
of what
their
Simon-
variable player power.
Most of what
They've-
Simon does, Fantasy Flight
True,
does,
but they've
a lot of
balanced
that.
out those games where there's not as much luck in them, it seems, as much anymore.
Maybe.
There's ways
I
to
mean, if
mitigate.
you still look at games like
Like Arkham Horror, for example.
Arkham Horse,
always comes down to
X-Wing,
like
Legion. I mean, all these games
Yeah.
that are heavy into dice and player
But that I
versus
can
player
understand,
conflict.
sure.
Those are true.
and most
Ameritrash
miniatures,
games.
most miniatures games in general. Everything in
Absolutely.
those games really can come down to that die roll. You can have
Absolutely.
the best positioning in the world,
Sure.
and just you,
Yeah,
when
let's
you roll.
also let's also say that dice rolling in a game doesn't make it a Ameristyle game.
Right.
We're gonna. That's
how those dice are
Plenty of ways
used.
to mitigate them.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I have to ask you guys, like, if you were to label yourselves right now, what kind of gamer would you be? Would you be a Ameristyle game or would you be a Euro
After
gamer?
this conversation, I'm
Let's
going to
start down
rethink
you.
this.
Let's start down
I've
there.
always said I'm definitely a Euro gamer. I like a lot of what Euro games have. I like, you know, card drafting. I like cube pushing. I like resource management. When I lose at a game, I like to have said, well, I played the best game I could play. I just didn't play as good of a game as you guys. I don't like losing to a game because I rolled a bunch of ones in a row or because I drew 4 you're dead cards in a row and you drew 4 you win cards in a row, right?
That's a fantastic point. I mean, I think
That's
that's
just-
true of most gamers, that when you play a game, you want to be in control of your own destiny in the game, right? You want to win or lose because of the decisions you made, not because of the way that the game affects you because of
Right.
die rules.
And
right?
in a Euro game, you're all playing with the exact same. There can be luck in a Euro game, but that luck affects everyone equally, and we all have the same chance to mitigate that. Some people might decide not to mitigate it and go a different route. But that being said, as I've always been a traditional Euro gamer, I do really like seeing this hybrid. I like having those elements with heavy theme. I would say games like The Godfather that came out last year, which was a great example of that crossover. And I'm ready to maybe accept more Ameristyle games, but I'll never be a fan of like hugely competitive, player elimination, luck-driven games. That's just not my favorite style.
Yeah.
I think over my few years here playing more heavier into board games, I would say in just what we're talking the traditional sense, I really like the Euro games. But now I sit here and I think about my top 10 of all time: Blood Rage, Pandemic Legacy, Gloomhaven. These are all Ameristyle games, but they've incorporated a lot of good Euro mechanic. But I think it's just because it's balancing everything. That's where the hybrid comes in. Yes, there's going to be some luck. I mean, I don't mind luck. I'm fine with luck. It's just you get some games like you're trying and someone else they roll snake eyes or whatever, and I win. So, but I think the more I think about it, and the games I'm liking even today, I'm kind of more toward the Ameristyle that incorporate just some Euro
some people
mechanics.
actually, it surprises me, but some people love that. The idea that anyone at the table could win at any time.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what strategy you use, no matter how good you are, you can roll, roll those snake eyes and turn the game around and win. Like, some people I talk to just really, even if it is against them, even if they lose because someone at the table won that way, they still just love that experience, which to me just is a little foreign from what I enjoy, but I mean, everybody likes different things.
Yeah, and that's key to it. And I'll share my answer. My first stubborn answer is I wouldn't label myself either way. Like, I would probably try to explain, like what you just said, the kind of games I like. I like good games. Like, it can be a good Ameristyle game or a good Euro game. I can enjoy either. We play plenty that we get here, and every so often we'll get one that might at face value look like, and then we'll play it and go, oh, that's pretty good. And it's a nice light sort of. A lot of them wouldn't be called Euros, but we have plenty of fun with them. Now, my not so stubborn answer is probably that I would lean more towards Euro, just from a mechanics standpoint. But that does not at all mean perfect information, because in my opinion, a great game is, for lack of if we're going to label them, probably one of the hybrids. And it's really a game where you're using a lot of information and making decisions and controlling your own destiny, but that have elements, and usually these elements revolve around some luck, that add exciting moments.
Or randomness, a little bit of randomness.
Yeah, a little bit of randomness.
I agree.
Like, so an example of that, and this maybe not a great example, but Ethnos to me feels mostly like a Euro. I mean, it's pure set collection for the most part. But I'll tell you what, that whole dragon thing with the way those dragons are shuffled into the bottom of the deck, which is random. I wouldn't say that that's a Ameristyle, but it brings a moment that you don't see in most Euros. You don't often play a Euro and the whole table goes, oh my God. You do it. You see it in Pandemic.
Right.
You see it in a lot of like co-ops and a lot of things where things hinge on a dice roll, like a craps table.
Right.
But you don't see it in a game like that usually, but you do there. And to me, that is where games should go. It's like a perfect combination. Most people have fun with it, and it was thought-provoking, more so than old American games like Monopoly and things like that, to where when you bring Ethnos out to a group of non-gamers, they're like, well, that was really cool. It was really interesting. And they had a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah. I would say I'm probably a Euro guy. I've always been a Euro guy. Although, looking at, as you'd mentioned, looking at the list of games that are like some of my favorite games of all time, they do fall more into that hybrid. I like a little bit of combat in my game. I like some player interaction that's not just building your own tableau in front of you. I find that to be boring after a while, and after playing a game 2 or 3 times, if that's all you're doing and there's no way to bump or move or displace people, it becomes a very mathy game. And I like mathy games. I like those style of games, but also I find them to be a little bit dry over time. One of my favorite games of all time, and I'm not sure how to label this, is Sid Meier's Civilization. Like, that game it's got elements of Ameristyle games. It's got direct conflict, but it also has your resource management. It's got a lot of different things that you're doing within the game, so I would consider that a hybrid. Blood Rage, one of my favorite games. Rising Sun. Rising Sun it falls right there in the center. I would call it probably more a Ameristyle game, but also it's got elements of Euro-style games in it, right? It breaks the barrier of both of those different styles of games. Eclipse. Another game that, how do you label that? It's got direct conflict, but it's got resource management. Kemet, Cyclades, like all of these really good games, you can't really categorize them one way or the other.
I have an idea.
What?
Call them good games.
No, I 100%
Right.
agree, but there are definitely ones that still fall in the line. If you were to label me as a gamer, I'm definitely a Euro style gamer. I don't like luck in my games. Maybe a little bit of randomness, but not luck. I like to look at the board and know exactly my plan, enact that plan. If people mess with me with that plan, that's perfectly fine. But if I change that plan, I want it to be my own destiny. And I want to win or lose depending upon the strategy that I have. Knowing that the next time I play that game, I can change that strategy to try to score better.
You know what? Do you have anything else? Because you said something just now that made me think of another great example that I think we should share of where I think games are headed. That it's a perfect example of, I think, something we all love, and that's Raiders of the North Sea. So when you go in on a raid in Raiders of the North Sea, you're going in with mostly perfect information. You know what you're able to achieve at a bare minimum.
Yeah.
But then there's a massive amount of luck as it relates to
The die rolls.
icing on top. So you roll the dice, but you know that you could go in and know, okay, I'm at least going to achieve the first level of success. But if I roll well, I might get the second and third level of success. Or if you enjoy that more, you could even go in not knowing whether you're going to meet that lowest level of success and hope that you roll well to meet that first level. And I think that gives both types of players what they want, right? Because you can go in knowing, okay, I know what I get and I might get better. And then someone might go, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and go for this. And because I know we played a game and I rolled exactly what I needed to get that third level of success. And it was one of those exciting moments in an otherwise very Euro game.
Well, that's what's making some of these games good. Like you said, Ethnos earlier, which is really just like you said, just a basic set collection. But it added this one little twist in it to a Euro. Like everybody's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Same thing with Raiders.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing your own thing and you got your strategy going, but there's this little bit of a twist. And I think that's what's really making good games, even great games today, is taking all these mechanics. There's not a whole lot of new mechanic out there, but it's taking them and can you add a little bit of twist in there to give you that kind of like, whoa, that can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
That's really making those games good.
Let us know, guys, what your favorite style of game is. Are you a Euro gamer? Are you a Ameristyle gamer? Are you a hybrid gamer? Are we wrong in our definitions? Who knows? I think these definitions are up to interpretation for different types of people. Let's move on to the games we've been playing over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, last couple weeks anyway.
Yeah, well, we played Welcome. Everyone here on set has played Welcome to.
That is good.
Which is a
so
fantastic
good.
game by Blue
really
Cocker.
good, yeah.
It is a roll and
No,
not
it's
roll
not
and
roll
right,
and
right.
card and right. It's a roll and right style game for sure.
But a great example
Yeah,
where
it's
they
a-
took the dice out and used cards, so you have a little bit better, not perfect, but you have a little more information.
It's only available right now in Europe. I think a lot of people are clamoring to try to get this over to the U.S. It's a really good game.
I think it's a huge movement forward for those roll and rights.
Yeah, we have a review coming out. The game you see there, Thanos Rising, we've played that a couple times. It is a new co-op game from USAopoly. It definitely falls in the family weight game, but it's very cool because we're all Avengers fans here, and we all cannot wait for the movie. And this has a lot of those new villains from the Black Order in it, so we got a chance to see those and play them.
It has that co-op moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a co-op and you're all fighting against Thanos and his villains. And it kind of, I mean, I don't want to say King of Tokyo, but it definitely is that weight of game, right? And it's got
Yeah,
some
definitely.
semi-push your luck dice rolling in it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, and I've said this to Jeremy a number of times. I wish when I was a kid, when they released games based on movies, that they were as good as what they are now. Because that's a good example of like, well, no, that's really good. I played it again last night and with a couple of guys, and they both, like, when is that coming out? They really were interested in picking it up.
And then I introduced Ryan today to Zhangguo,
Yeah,
or
that
Zhangguo,
was
whatever you want to pronounce
brain
it.
burner right there.
Yeah, it's a What's Your Game. It's probably one of my favorites. That, Madeira, and Nippon are probably my three favorite from them. Total brain burner. Older game, 2014, 15. Fantastic game. I think you would dig it.
Yeah,
It's-
I've been wanting to play it.
Yeah, I
really
liked it
good
better
game.
than Nippon, I think.
Really?
Yeah,
I really
do.
like Nippon.
Yeah,
I like that. I like
was a lot
that.
of fun.
really
I like that
good.
you can you're basically building your own variable player powers.
Yeah.
Like you're building your own player board, choosing what bonuses you want
Oh, that's cool.
which is really cool.
A lot of in-game
reminded me of
scoring.
La Isla from Feld, where you kind of have that you
Multiple
slot
use cards.
Yeah.
The cards can be used in a variety of different ways. It's a very fun game.
What have you been playing, Ryan? Anything
Well,
else?
you know what?
Other than that?
Azul.
Surprise, surprise! I've been playing a lot of Azul. Still, my group is not over Azul, and we're not over Heaven and Ale.
Really?
Just still playing Heaven and Ale. That game is it's so good. But I've been trying to branch out and just play some older games that I haven't been able to or never got to play. I played Firenze the other day.
Played some Trois.
I played Trois, which I've played before. We played a couple games of Trois, which. Talking about Euros that have no theme, that could just literally be boxes. And
Come on now.
Like, there's no
Got a
theme.
great theme.
Don't
Don't
knock Trois
I love
to Jeremy.
Trois, but
Troi's
those
great.
boxes could just be boxes on a piece of paper with no theme attached to it, whatever, and the game would still be good. Like, it doesn't rely on that theme. But I played Firenze from the same designer as Hansa Teutonica.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I'm pronouncing that right. And
Do you like that?
I did like it, and I finally played Council of Four, which is I've long been wanting to play Council of
But
Four.
the original version?
This was the original version I
Yeah,
played.
we just got a copy of the CMON version that I definitely want to get to the table.
Yeah, we'll play the CMON version. Then I'll be able to compare. Now I can compare. Well, I know they've made some changes, at least artistically, if nothing else.
Well, not only artistically, we saw it last year at CMON Expo, and even then it was a very finished-looking product, and a lot of people gave feedback then, and they've even incorporated a lot of the feedback that they got at CMON Expo last year. It's actually 2 boards now.
It looks completely different.
Remember,
Like, it's a super bright looking, colorful game now.
it's the
got a lot
it's
of-
the designers that did like Grand Austria, right? Isn't it the
yeah,
same
some
group?
of them,
So
I think.
yeah,
Couple
I
of
don't know if they kind of it's like Kiesling and Kramer. They kind of go in and out, and but anything that they do,
of
I think
awesome
I would
Italian
love to
designers.
play.
That's right.
What about you, Gary?
Besides the games that you guys played with you, like Thanos and stuff, I finally played a Grail game. For some people, was War of the Ring. So
Oh, really?
I finally played that game. You know, there are just some games that are so thematic.
Right.
We've already talked about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Rebellion is like at the epitome. War of the Ring is right there with
Wait
it.
till you play on the big deluxe edition. I mean, it's
It
super
was
thematic.
super fun. I mean, I lost. I was the Free People's. Because I really didn't know what I was doing. Because I
Oh,
didn't know
you
the
doomed all
cards
of
yet. You know,
humanity.
I just didn't know the cards and how I could move. And like the person that was playing Josh, our friend Josh, he goes, "You might want to start moving the ring." Yeah, I'm trying to get the Mordor. Trust me, I'm trying to get there. But wow, what a great game. Boy, that board
purely
fills up fast.
Ameristyle game,
It is
too.
Yeah.
definitely. So I played War of the Ring, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, I got SEELAND to the table. You've played it.
I played it.
You guys
I have
haven't
not
played
played
No,
that.
I'm
that.
not.
That's is that a Kiesling Kramer?
It's a Kiesling
Yeah.
Kramer. It's
Is that like? Didn't they do Adventureland? Is this?
No,
No, SEELAND's
this
about
is-
windmills.
This
Oh.
if you looked at the box, you're going to say, okay, that's a Euro for sure. You're putting windmills out on this board. In fact, it really brings back a lot of memories of playing. What's the one you just mentioned that you've
Council of Four?
No, that you've been playing a ton of.
Oh,
Heaven
Azul,
and Ale.
Heaven and Ale.
Heaven and Ale.
Okay.
Thank you. You can tell that the same guys design these games. They play very differently, but there's some things that are in common that are very reminiscent. It has this interesting little, I don't know, would you call that a rondelle? Up
It's a windmill.
Mhm. It's a rondelle up there you're moving around.
You're moving one character around to pick up tiles like Heaven and Ale, but all of the player pieces are on these money pieces that are on the outside ring. And so no one has money in front of them. You can only go so far on the money ring. If there's no more money in front of you, you can't skip tiles. You can move the other guy just one space for free.
Interesting.
But if you move him 2 spaces, you have to move your guy up a space on the money track. It's really
Sounds like
interesting.
a hybrid of Heaven and Ale and Palaces of Carrara.
Maybe.
You almost
kind
with your
of.
rondelle
Kind
thing.
of. It was really cool. It's a very simple game. It's a very
Yeah.
straightforward game. We didn't play. There's even a slight variant that we didn't play with, but it was a lot of fun. And it was really inexpensive. I can't remember where I found it, but it was a pretty cheap game.
Cool.
So that's it for episode 14 of Chit Chat. There's one thing that we wanted to share with you, and that's that this is the very first episode of Chit Chat that is brought to you by our friends at the Broken Token. They are a new sponsor of the show. We're going to have some Broken Token stuff probably on set eventually.
Yeah.
Show them a little bit more love than we did here in the first episode, but we wanted to definitely share that the Broken Token is helping us bring you guys Chit Chat, and we're going to be bringing it to you every other week.
next
for
year.
for a whole nother year.
Yeah,
So
it's
we
fantastic.
really enjoy doing the show. We love all the feedback that you all give us in the comments. It's really probably one of the more fun shows that we do here.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of fun doing this. So thank you, and thanks to the Broken Token. And as always, check us out on Facebook and Twitter and everything else that we do. Thanks a lot for watching.